dreamers, a happy, scrappy group of believers. So come, play a part. There's room for mistakes and messes and art. Who cares if there's not many takers? We're doing it for the makers.
Hey everybody, welcome to the For the Makers podcast. I'm so pumped that you guys are here today. It is a gorgeous day outside.
Beautiful.
It is stunning. But we are not outside.
We're in a basement.
We are in a basement recording our podcast for you, gentle listener. So I'm really excited that you are listening to this podcast. A quick reminder, you guys, we do release our podcast on every second and fourth Friday of the month.
Grace, why is that?
Because you clap on the 2 and the 4, not the 1 and the 3. I told you I listened to these.
Yes, you did.
That is, we've brainwashed people.
Yeah, it's success. Yeah. So go ahead and give us a subscribe. Give us a comment if you like what you're hearing. We want to keep making these for you guys. So let us know if you like them. Hopefully, you know who we are by now. I have said that every episode so far. Hopefully, you know who we are by now. I am one of your hosts, Lee Beth Etheridge, and I'm here with the one and only.
Oh my gosh, Rachel Gifford.
We are so excited that you guys are here, and we have a really incredible guest.
We do.
With us today. She is a incredible artist and an even better friend, and we can't wait for you guys to get to know her. Rach, who do we have this week?
Today we have Grace Copeland on the podcast. And Grace, I'm going to do a little cold reading of your bio for the intro. Okay. Never mind. I'll bring this up later. Grace Copeland is a director-producer of both theatrical media and live shows based in New York City. To support her own creative endeavors, she accepts commissions for theater photography and dance films. Grace has no background in theater or dance and has stumbled into the arts industry through God's favor and good friends who believed in her before she believed in herself. She is currently producing a series of dance films called Dance in Development, which supports theater makers developing new work by creating dance films of original songs written for the stage. She is also producing a dance series called Unpolished Movement Portraits that celebrates the humanity of movement artists. Grace has been a selected artist twice for Rockefeller Center's annual Flag Project photo exhibit. Her live show credits include Ryan Dunn, a seasonal playlist, and IJM X Broadway, a Broadway benefit concert for International Justice Mission. She wants to create in a way that always loves the artists more than the art. What a fantastic freaking bio. Grace Copeland, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
I don't know how to banter.
You're doing great so far,
yeah,
honestly.
You're killing it.
Truly. You said, thanks for having me, which is just like the best little like
intro
podcast response, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Grace, before you, we had Josh Dunn here, who is a mutual friend.
Never heard of him.
He's like
just
this random guy that we found
off
walking.
the street.
Yeah. No, but we were joking about how the three of us grabbed lunch the other day and how we were talking about, I don't know what to put as my discipline sometimes on like my business card or what have you. And how sometimes I said that sometimes I just want to put, I don't know, you tell me. And you put in your email to us, when we asked about your artistic disciplines, you said, LOL, who knows, it keeps expanding. But for now, I was like, this is relatable.
100%.
Like, this is the most Grace answer. Okay, so Grace, can you just tell us really quickly, because I love that you have this in your bio, that you don't have a background in theater or dance, that you've kind of stumbled into the arts industry. How did that happen?
I got my camera when I was 15. So I've been shooting for almost 8 years, but I did like families and weddings and the sports at my high school, and engagements. And then when I moved here, I kind of put that all down for a little bit, to work for a church. And then I had nothing to do with theater or dance, but I was a gymnast, which is like kind of dance adjacent. We would take like dance technique classes, but it was literally like only the not fun part of dance. That's all we did.
Totally.
Was the lame part.
Totally.
Like standing at the bar.
Yeah.
So yeah, then, I mean, really it just happened through the hang. I don't know if you guys know what the hang is, but, yeah. So just like through friends that were in the arts, it was like, hey, can you help us film this thing? Or I don't particularly think I'm in a spot to pay full price for like someone that does this professionally. Could you help me do this? And so it was all just kind of like doing stuff with friends for fun and as favors. And then I was like, oh, this could be like a real thing that could happen for me.
Yeah. And then it has become a real thing.
I was supposed to be like, and now she's a big deal, folks. I do think that I've been dying to ask you this question. Because I know that in previous conversations that we've all had together and separately, you kept saying, I never felt like I was an artist. I always was just kind of like doing it because I loved to shoot. You know, I loved my camera. I loved to shoot videos or take photos. When was the moment in which you had a switch flip and you were like, oh, I'm an artist? Or has that moment happened for you?
I think that it was at the premiere of the Hang's Christmas production in 2021 at the Hep's house. Because those were the first like really creative projects I had ever done. Because up till then, I mean, people even in high school would like tell me I was an artist, and I was like, no, I'm not. I think I just felt not embarrassed, but like what I did wasn't quite at the same level as like other people that claimed the artist title. Because I felt like what I did was very documentary. Like I'm capturing what's already there. I'm not putting anything new into the world. Because like I said, it was like families and weddings. But so yeah, when we had like our premiere party, and that was the first time I'd ever like shown something to a live audience and watched them react in real time, and that was horrifying. And then just like people coming up afterwards and being like, oh my God, that was so fun and so great and blah, blah, blah. And then like it was a room full of artists, so people that are dancers and are theater makers of whatever variety were just very like, were telling me that they could see like what I was able to add to the dance.
Yeah.
Which I think before I just felt like I wasn't adding anything new. I was just like capturing what was already there.
Yeah.
So I think I just like didn't believe in myself that I had new things to add to stuff like that. Which is then I think even then expanded, because then I was like, okay, well, I don't feel like I'm someone that can like generate new ideas. I just kind of like expand on what other people are doing, and I'm happy to like help other people's visions come to life. And then this past summer, the summer of 22, when I pitched the Hep's House commercial video to the director of that organization, that was the first time I was like, oh, I can have another step. Like I can have my own ideas and then execute them. Who knew?
Yeah, totally.
Right.
So yeah, that was my first project where that was like my brainchild, where I was like, this is the vision. This is what we're doing. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So for our gentle listeners who don't know, I'm laughing that gentle listeners has stuck ever
That's a
since
Rachel
Lynn said it.
Yeah.
I'm like, we're sitting here saying gentle listeners over and over again, and I'm like, I can't believe that one stuck.
Yeah.
But the Hang is a Christian organization that is for artists in New York City, and then Hepzibah House is another Christian organization in New York City that is basically like oh my gosh, what am I trying to say?
I've heard it described as like a Christian hostel situation.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's like the best way it's described.
It's this beautiful brownstone on the Upper West Side, and it's been a long time that it's been alive in New York City. Yeah. But the Hang is held at Hepzibah House.
Yeah.
And
I would say that the Hepzibah House is a hub for Christian life in the city.
Right.
Like
That's
a bunch
good way
of
to
churches
describe it.
and ministries rent their space
Yeah.
to hold their own events there. So it's not like Hepzibah House is putting on the events, but they're providing
Correct.
space for it, which in New York City is often what you need most in ministry and church life.
Without a doubt.
Space is so important. Yeah. So Grace came up with this amazing idea for basically how to highlight the house, Hepzibah House, in a musical dance tour. And so it was a really cool project that we were working on in 2022. I keep
Co-produced by Rachel Gifford and quartet vocals by Leah Beth Etheridge.
Yes.
Hello.
Danced in by Josh Dunn. And music written by Ryan Dunn.
Yes.
And orchestrated by DJ Bees. Literally everybody.
So basically, you've heard from all of them.
Yeah. So far,
yeah. You've heard from all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. So, and it's so fun because I think back to, it's been interesting interviewing people on this podcast, and we do often talk about some of the really beautiful artistic things that came from COVID times. And honestly, like our friendship and a lot of the projects that we've worked on together stemmed from COVID time projects. So Grace and
I wasn't an artist before COVID. So
right. Yeah. Right. I mean, it's just kind of like this beautiful thing that came out of a really hard time. But the Hang did 2 Christmas shows during COVID, and they were all filmed and then put on YouTube. And I was on staff with the Hang at the time, and so putting that together, and that's how I met Grace, was through basically reaching out and being like, hey, do you want to come and film this dance piece for our 2020 Christmas show?
And I was like, I don't know how to do that.
You're like, do what?
Film dance. Do
but
people
you
even
were
do that?
Such a pro. You were such a pro. And also, I think back to this sometimes, I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, we were in like an empty Midtown, right in front of
the town hall on 43rd. I literally stood in the middle of 43rd Street between 6th and 7th, and no cars bothered us because it was November of 2020.
Yeah, it was wild. And do you remember at one point that was a fire truck that went by, and we were like, oh my gosh, we're going to get in trouble. We're going to get in trouble. Or at least that's what I was thinking. And then, such a rule follower. And then the firemen were like, way to go, you guys. Like they honked their
And you guys were like, thank you.
And they're like, oh, thanks, okay.
Yeah, it's so funny to me to think back, Grace, at like, because the first time I met you was on one of those shoots. I was helping out one of those shoots, and it's so funny to hear you dictate always like, oh, well, I wasn't an artist before that, or I never really saw myself as an artist. Because now knowing you and the way that we do know you, and how all 3 of us have become pretty close, being able to be like, oh my gosh, I consider you one of my closest friends, being able to say like,
sorry, they couldn't see that. My jaw just dropped.
No, but it's true. Being able to say like, all I know you as is an incredible artist. It's part of who you are. It's a part of how the Lord has wired you. And so being able to say like, it's just funny to me to always hear you say, oh, well, I wasn't an artist. Because I think you always were. It was just the timing.
Sure. For sure. It's always been there. And I think, like I said, people in high school, like older adults that were on the church staff I was on, and people that would mentor me, like would call that out in me. Sure. And I was just like, no, I don't think you're
okay.
right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's funny. I think it's always been there. And then there just came a very specific time that the Lord had planned for it to be awakened intensely all at once.
Yeah. Without a doubt.
I love that. Okay. So that kind of answers the first question of like how you got into the arts. Is there anything that you would add to that of like how that happened?
I mean, I've quote unquote quit photography like twice now, where I just was like, this is not going to be a sustainable thing, a lucrative thing, both of which are true still.
Still true.
But I was like, I don't think this is going to be my full-time thing. And so I put it down when I came to the city to work for the Dream Center, which is a church and a nonprofit. And then I kind of picked it up a little bit in the summer of 21 when I worked for ministry on Staten Island. And then my old camera broke, the one I'd been shooting on since I was 15, and I couldn't afford to replace it. And I was like, well, I guess that means I'm done with this, whatever. And I wasn't too upset about it. I was like, well, it's time for that to be over.
Yeah.
And then I was telling my mom about that, and that it was like $6,000 to replace it, which I had none of. And I just had a summer working in a ministry on Staten Island. So like,
no money was had.
Yeah. So my mom even said, I don't I don't know if it's time for you to be totally done with it. Like if you thought about financing it, which is not how I was raised. In my family, it's like you save up and you buy things outright. You do not go into debt.
Right.
Like, I mean, there's a time and a place, like a mortgage is different, but like just to be wise and not to put yourself in debt. And so for my mom to be like, well, have you thought about financing it? I was like, no, because you said not to do that.
Right.
But so, yeah, I took a leap of faith and I said, okay, God, I'll do this, but these payments are going to roll up on me. So I'm going to need you to throw some work my way.
Right.
And that fall, literally God, like that fall I had right after that 3 months of being fully booked, having never been fully booked in my whole entire life, between like church events and ministry things and families and engagements and weddings. And that was the same time we were filming the Christmas show stuff. Mm-hmm. And I paid it off in 3 months, and I intended to pay it off over 2 years.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
And also, to be fair, I was in school, so like I didn't actively need that money. I was not paying life expenses. It just literally all went straight to that. But definitely 3 months, I was not expecting that to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, that definitely, I like felt the spiritual significance of that crossroads moment when I was deciding if I was gonna get the new camera, because I knew that was me committing to continuing with that and making that a thing or leaving it be
behind. Yeah.
So
when do you feel like you had, I guess you dictated this with the Hepzibah House commercial, but crossed over into more of like, okay, not only am I a videographer and not only am I a photographer, but I'm now a producer, and wanting to like produce things.
January of 23. So like 5 months ago.
Yeah.
After I don't think I even fully realized that what I was doing for the Heps House project was producing and being an originator as a producer. Like saying, this is the idea, build the team, help make it happen, put everyone together. So yeah, I think confidence from that project and sort of like looking back and realizing that was the role I had taken on for that. And then, I mean, producing live stuff, I never intended to do that. So I think just that was another God moment where Ryan Dunn had his house concert that I think all three of us were at. Mm-hmm. And I had seen a lot of like Green Room 42, 54 Below shows as a photographer. Yeah. Like had worked a ton of them. And so I recognized that what he presented to us that night was like fully ready for one of those venues. He had enough content. He was storytelling between each song. There was a narrative arc. It was very clear. And I was like, he should totally do this at Green Room. And I said that to him afterwards, and he goes, I don't know. I don't know how to do that. And then I like sat on it for maybe like a whole 24 hours. And I texted him and I was like, hey, let's meet up. And I was like, I think we should do this. And he was like, I don't know how to do that. And I was like, I don't know either, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And we did. And literally 2 hours after that meeting, I was signing the contract on the Green Room 42 venue thing. I went home. Yeah, I don't mess around. I went home and I emailed and they responded and were like, sounds good. Here are our dates. I was like, we want that one. And I signed it and I was like, cool, we have a venue. I guess we're going to do this.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh my gosh.
And it was a smashing success.
It really was. It was so good. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was truly incredible.
Yeah.
Definitely one of my favorite things I've seen in that space. 100%.
Shut your face.
And you got an amazing review.
Yeah, that was weird.
That was pretty
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Gentle listener, the Grace and Ryan both got rave reviews on Broadway World, which was really incredible to see. It's always fun. Fun feels such a light term to use, but it's always amazing, cool, I don't know, to see people that are incredible artists finally get recognized as incredible artists via some other avenue. Mm-hmm. So like,
yes,
with the Broadway World thing, when they were talking about, they just raved about the production as a whole. And I was like, yeah, I was like, you know it now. And I know it, how great these people are. And I just think that is like, that's some of the goods about being an artist and being in community with other artists, is the fact that we get to celebrate each other in our wins. And when somebody outside finally is like, oh, they're incredible. You're like, yeah, we know. Exactly. Grace, second question. Shall we move on?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, cool. So second question, why do you think art is important? It's a light question.
Yes. This is in my like artist statement and my bio that you just read, but in my Instagram bio. But I deeply believe that artists, the people, are always more important than art, the product. And I think that's a very common phrase, is people over product. But then when you translate that to what we do, it's artists over the art.
Right.
And for some reason that doesn't sit as well with people. And I think me, Grace Copeland, no one come at me. Me, Grace Copeland thinks that community is like the most ultimate purpose of making art, that you do it with other people. And when you are making things either like for a higher cause, or you're doing it for like an organization that you believe in, or it has like, as a Christian believer, it has biblical themes. That's even like another added layer to it. Yeah. So I definitely think art is important, but I think the process of creating art is maybe the more important thing in my experience than like the final product that comes out at the end. And I think in terms of like art as an apologetic to the world, truth is like highly debatable, especially now. And beauty isn't as easily deniable, if that makes sense. People recognize beauty a lot more easily than they recognize truth. Maybe not always, but sometimes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a way to get to people's heart pretty quickly. And I think I've realized as I've continued to like work and do things and meet cool people, like this is like a thing I've been saying recently, and some people like you can see in their eyes, they're like, what? But I've been saying like, it's just Broadway. And I say it with that tone just to say like, I'm not trying to take away any of the importance of it or the excitement of like working your whole life for this dream and you get it. But it's just Broadway in the sense that it's not eternal.
Right.
And I mean, even in this lifetime, it's the most fleeting. Things close left and right. But like your show closes, but you still stay in contact with those that you made friendships with in the cast. And there are things that like last long beyond a production, and it's not the art itself. Yeah. So, yeah.
Wow. I know. I have so many thoughts. Rach, what are your thoughts?
Well, I was just sitting here thinking how, we ask all of these questions to every guest that we have on here. And this one is it's so interesting to hear what people say. And we have lots of different people on the podcast. We have LB and I are both Christians. So we have a handful of friends who are also Christians on the podcast, but we also have people who are not, who are different religions or just of different beliefs. And I just think it's so cool to hear like the diverse answers in that, even from people who have like same worldviews. Like there's just so many different perspectives. And I think what's so beautiful about your answer, Grace, is that it is so, it kind of cuts straight to the heart of just like people, and it really simplifies art.
Yeah. And just to add context to me as a person, I didn't grow up with any exposure to the arts really. I saw Wicked when I was 14.
Yeah, you did.
Because my parents were doing one of those like pretending to want a timeshare things. So we had like a free vacation in New York. And it was just like, we Googled, what do you see when you don't like theater? And Wicked.
I love that.
That's amazing.
And I definitely like appreciated it and thought it was cool, but there was no one in my life that was pursuing art as a career or even as a serious hobby. It was like, I kind of paint on the side when I feel like it, but if I don't get to it, I'm not that upset about it.
Sure.
So I just wasn't aware that there was a whole community of people that pursue this so firmly and wholeheartedly. So I just didn't know. So I think I entered the arts industry through like an attraction to artists. Like I was able to recognize as I came around like hang people, like Christian artists. And our main point of connection was obviously the Christianity part, not the art part, for me at least. I came in through an appreciation of like the very specific spirit that is in an artist as opposed to the things they were making. And I really love that about like my immediate friend group is I met all of you guys during COVID and no one was working.
Right.
And so there was a little bit eliminated of that like, oh, you're on Broadway. You want to get coffee? And you're like, yeah, I know what that means. Get out of here.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it was like, oh, you're all unemployed. And people had done cool things in the past, but it just felt to me like the playing field was maybe like leveled a little bit in like the interpersonal dynamics.
Totally.
And it wasn't all like, oh, she is doing cool things right now, so I'm going to buddy up to her.
Right.
And I've really appreciated getting to know everyone as people first. And then as like the world has reopened and people have started to do things again, I've been just very surprised by people I've been friends with for years. And I'm like, what? Like, I think I was friends with you maybe a year before I heard you sing for the first time.
Yeah.
And it was in a karaoke bar. So it wasn't even like this grand thing, but like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I love that you put the artist before the art. I think it just makes my heart happy to hear that, because I think that I even get lost in the sauce of this industry and get lost in what this, what we do as artists. Josh mentioned, being reminded of like what we do is not who we are. And I think that is something easily forgotten. And I do want to like throw it back at you to say like, why do you think there is resistance, or it could be resistance? Some people, would wholeheartedly agree with you. But like you said, this kind of statement might be met with sort of a like, for lack of a better term, like, why do you think that is?
I think it's met with more resistance in the commercial space, like in the commercial producing theatrical space versus the nonprofit theatrical space. Because this is just like such a Grace thing, and I say this all the time, because we live in a capitalist society, but because we live in America, which is a capitalist society, it still is show business. It is business at the end of the day, and you have to be tied on some level to money. And I mean, like Rachel, we talk about this a lot. Like it's our least favorite part of producing is having to fundraise and to worry about the money and how we're going to make it happen.
Right.
And so I think that gets met with resistance because of like our society doesn't value art the same way others do.
Yeah.
Like how theater is subsidized in London, like by the government. Yeah. Because culture, I mean, they had Shakespeare, so that's like a good reason to think it's important to subsidize your art.
Totally.
But yeah, they just culturally value the arts more. And so it's less tied to the pound.
Right.
And the way that here it's like, it's always got to be tied to the dollar because we value money over here.
Right.
Everyone values money, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. It's a good answer.
Yeah, we do talk about that a lot. It's not our favorite part. And I think too, just because we've had conversations too about wanting in projects that we do, like, man, the dream, the goal is to be able to treat the people that we work with the most respect that we can possible. And so much of that too, like, I don't know, especially as you get further into the business, you're just like, I really want to pay people well. Like, I just want to, and we've all done our fair share of, especially in our friend group, of like doing each other favors and doing things, just volunteering for things. And LB and I have had so many conversations, and Grace, we've had these conversations too, especially when we were working on the Hepzibah House commercial, of just like wanting to create an environment that is so intentional and thoughtful of people's time, respectful. Again, a lot of it comes down to like respect, because we want to treat people as if they're, we just want to treat people like they're people and they're doing their jobs well, because they are. So anyway, I think that's just, it's such a tricky thing.
Yeah. Well, and it turns, you know, when it comes to like respecting collaborators and respecting people that you work with, especially people who are your friends and are artists, it can, you know, it can be a interesting conversation to have as far as like payment goes and things like that. But also like, man, if you really have an incredible doctor, like you want to pay them well. Like if you have an incredible architect, like you want to pay them well. Well, if there's an incredible artist in your life that is pouring their heart and soul out and creating something, pay them well, because that will help them want to be able to do more art. That's the thing, is like, it's not just I want to be paid so I can make my life happen, which is also true and good and necessary. But it also is like, I want to be paid so that I can do more art, so I can keep doing what I'm doing.
I think, yeah, people still don't view art as a real job, even if they say they do, because it's like the phrase, well, you love it so much that you're willing to do it for free. And it's
Right.
like, well, a doctor didn't go to medical school for 8 years because he hates it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And sometimes sometimes people are very upfront and they're like, I went to medical school and I'm a doctor because I want to make lots of money. And that's
Right.
fine. But I mean, I think most people care deeply about helping people be
Right.
healthy and happy. And that's why they choose to do that. And even though they love their job, you're not like, oh, well, you love to do surgery so much, I'm sure you'll just do this for free. You just would never.
Right. Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
It's so true. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Grace, what keeps you grounded as a human?
God.
The way you said that. God.
It's just like, that the answer you expect. But I think it's like the Sunday school answer, which is funny given I did not go to Sunday school. But I mean, like in an ultimate sense, for me, it is God. I believe in the God of Christianity, the one true God of Israel, incarnated in Jesus Christ. And I think I'm a very pragmatic person. So sometimes I hear people say that and I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like, but what does that mean?
Sure.
So I have practical answers as well.
Come on, practicality.
I think as a Christian believer, it is so important to be in a local church community. And I mean local, like local to you. Like we love Tim Ross and Jackie Perry and Mike Todd and all the like internet pastor people.
Yeah.
And it's great to listen to a podcast, but that person is not your pastor. You know what I mean? Even if you claim them, like they don't know you. If you're like in trouble, they're not coming to see you at the hospital.
Right.
They're not coming to your birthday party. They're not taking your calls at 2 a.m.
Right.
At my pastor, Priscilla, she gets lots of texts from me at all hours of the night. But I think your pastor needs to be accessible to you and like a real person to you. And so that's really important for me. And then also, I like to run. I recently have started dancing just for fun. I'm really bad, but I'm doing it.
No, you're not.
She's not. She's learning tap and is killing it.
I'm trying my best. And then also I think it's important. This is something that I found is like offered by a good local church, but really deep, non-romantic relationships. I think that our society is like, oh, when you find your romantic partner, you will find the deepest form of connection that you've been wanting. And as someone that has a new partner, I do recognize that that's different. It is a different dynamic, and I'm not trying to deny that. But some people, I think I've watched some friends just like have very shallow friendships because they're waiting to give it all to a partner one day, which just like might not happen. Right. And even if it does, I think that you're just setting yourself up to be disappointed by it because you've put so much stock in what that's going to be. But so just like being really deep and intentional with friendships, and then also intergenerational friendships. I think even recently I was like, oh yeah, my friend that has 4 kids and lives in a walk-up, and then my friend Rose that's like 60 and lives in Chelsea, and someone's like, why do you have friends that are like in such different life stages than you? And I think that that's what a good church does and fosters. But then I was like, oh, I forget that that's actually not normal. But it adds so much value to your life. to have diverse friendships in every sense of the word.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that is, and people, especially living in such a hyper specific kind of community, like the three of us do, among other artists, other like professional full-time artists.
Yeah.
You just get sucked in and forget that there's a whole world out there of people who are living a little bit more normally than we are.
Yes.
And so sometimes it's nice to just like go on a walk with a friend and her kids, or like go have dinner with an elderly couple and be like, life is more than making art.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, that's such a great practical grounding. Honestly, piece of advice. Because I mean, I feel that way all the time when I'm reminded of, we talk a lot, LB and I talk a lot about like reality because so often in the arts industry, you can get so kind of enveloped in the work that you're doing, which is not a bad thing, but you also need like practical things that are drawing you back to what your reality is, because it can become all consuming. And even the life of an artist can become all consuming because it is very gig to gig. Like you're just kind of you can be constantly in work mode if you're not careful. And I feel that all the time with my like older friends. I have a dear friend, she's 20 years older than me, and we're just at very different life stages. And every time we get together, I feel so refreshed. And then I have another friend that's got 3 kids now, and we just get together sometimes and walk in the park. And when you have like kids who have basic needs that need to be met next to you all the time, like it just is it's a reality check, and it's so refreshing. Like you don't really realize that it is until you have it, you know?
Yeah. One of my very first concert gigs, there was this guy named Tom Sesma, and he was like one of the only people at this gig that like, sometimes as the photographer at a gig like this, people just kind of like act like you're not there, which is fine. I mean, sometimes you want them to do that, you know?
Right, exactly.
In a chest, but then sometimes you're all sitting around and you're like, I could literally not be here. No one would care. But this guy came up to me and was like, hey, I haven't seen you before, introduced himself, blah, blah, blah. And we got to talking. And this was like one of my very, very, very first concert gigs. I did it for like $50, which is appalling, but I did it. And I met some great people. But he came up to me when we were talking, and he gave me that advice. He's maybe in his 60s, I'd say, and has had a very successful career in musical theater. He's an Oliver right now at City Center.
Oh, cool.
And he was asking if I liked New York, and as you two know, I love New York. Wanted to die here, bury me in Queens. Yeah, he was just telling me about his life as an artist, and how he was like, if you want to make it as an artist, you need to have a real life, because art flows from a real life. And I don't feel like at that point, I hadn't heard another like professional artist say that. And he was just saying like, people come and go from the city all the time, and that's fine. But the people that really make it here are the ones that establish a really solid life. And like, if their artistic career were to fall out from under them, they would be sad, but they would be okay. It wouldn't totally ruin their lives.
Yeah.
And we haven't spoken since that very moment, and I'm sure he had no idea that was going to like make such an impact on me. But it's literally like I wrote it on a postcard, and it's above where I work, like at my desk at home.
I love that.
That is so cool.
Yeah, I have a friend who's a producer, and he talks about that a lot. Like he talks about how you have to have meaningful relationships in your life. You cannot survive off of just networking relationships or just people who are going to like push your career. He talked about how like getting coffee with somebody is more important than booking the next gig or doing the next thing. He's like, get the coffee, spend the time, build the relationship, build a life. And it's like, it's almost like we as artists, especially in New York industry, it's like everything can become so insular, like so small. And then whenever you realize, oh yeah, life, it's suddenly like you pan out, and all of a sudden everything is much bigger.
And that's what I meant by it's just Broadway.
Yeah.
It's like this whole conversation. That's like
Yeah.
what I was trying to communicate.
Yep. Yeah. What were you gonna say?
I don't know, probably the same thing as you.
Were you gonna talk about playing pretend?
Yep. Go ahead.
With the same wavelength. I worked with this woman who basically, at the end of the day, it's night. Oh my gosh. No, she talked about what we actors do for a living. She was like, we play pretend. Like, we believe that it's important, like that art is important, but kind of to your point earlier of like the artist is more important than the art, because at the end of the day we play pretend. Like that's what it is. It's not life or death situations. It's not. And I think every once in a while I just need that reminder, because the stakes can suddenly be so high and I will get anxious over something, or be talking to a friend who's really worked up about an audition or the process of the show that they're in. And I don't want to diminish like the fact that people are wanting to make their living by doing these things, and that there's an aspect of that it can be very stressful. But I think sometimes there does need to be that reminder of like, you know what, this is a play. This is pretend. This is not reality. My reality is my family and my community and these friendships. And, if you have a faith, like that's your reality, right? So anyway, but I just loved this castmate that I had. She was trying to console this woman who, also in our cast, who was just having a really, really rough day. And we were about to go out to do our show. And she was like, hey, listen, we're going to go play pretend. So like, we don't have to take this too seriously. Cause the woman who was very distraught was just so like, I'm so sorry that she was apologizing for not being very present and we were just like, oh my gosh, this is not worth stressing over.
Yeah, don't stress about it.
So anyway, I just loved that. And she was an older woman. She was in her probably 70s. And I was just like, I took so many nuggets from her through that process. It was Steel Magnolias. So I was learning from all of these older women, and it was just so much fun of like seeing how they worked, because none of them were like, this is my lifeline.
Everything.
Yeah, this is my everything. And I was like, this is really refreshing, because a lot of times like people who are younger, it is like they're everything.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was a ramble. But
no, not at all.
Move on to the next question.
Yeah, let's do it. Grace, what person, place, or experience has shaped you the most?
I have two gentlemen written down here.
Two gentlemen.
I will just go ahead and start with Josh Dunn.
Oh, I love that.
Josh, this is the moment in which a single tear falls from your eye.
I expect to be sent a picture of it. Thank you so much. Josh, we met on one of those dance films for the Hang Christmas show in 2021 for the Holiday Inn piece. He was dancing in it. And it was literally one of those moments when he walked in to, I think we were at Open Jar, into the rehearsal for that. He like literally walked in the room, and I just had one of those like Holy Spirit nudges where I was like, he's going to be important to me. Yeah. And I was right.
Love that.
And I think he has shaped me creatively in terms of like staying inspired part of the work, like not looking at it as a necessity, to constantly be like taking in other people's art and other non-artistic things that inspire me. And then also just his common refrain, make your own stuff. I feel like he's someone that has always been like, you should just do it. And you're like, I don't know how. And he's like, Google it, figure it out. Like, just like make your own stuff. So I've found that very inspiring. I think also maybe that is like a tie into what you asked before about when I shifted to want to produce things, was just like, he'd been saying that for like a year, and I finally was like, I guess I should just do that thing that Josh always says and just make my own stuff.
Yeah.
And then I really feel like he's kind of started this, he kind of like lit the flame in our friend group that I feel like I've watched grow, of everyone making their own stuff. Yeah. Because I feel like he was doing it first, and I think sometimes you just need to see that something's possible to believe that you can do it. And so I think him doing it and us watching and then him encouraging us, I feel like I've just watched it spread throughout our like immediate circles of people being like, oh,
I can do this too.
I can do that too.
Yeah, without a doubt.
And then the other one is a guy named Trevor Wint, who was my boss in high school when I was like on working for my church in the video department.
Yeah.
There was like a year there where I was like the only video person because we were between full-time staff members. And so that was a very stressful time in my life, but I learned a lot about video production.
Yeah, I bet.
And so we finally hired Trevor, and I think he was in seminary at the time. But so he came in, and so I now had like a mentor, having been on my own for a while. And I feel like I don't think I realized it until really recently, which this has been like 6 years ago now. But I just realized how much we had so many conversations that I wasn't ready for.
Yeah.
Or ready to accept the truth of then.
Yeah.
That as the years have gone on, I'm like, Trevor tried to tell me that in 2017. Trevor tried to tell me that my senior year of high school, and I wasn't ready for it. And he was one of those people that was like, you could be a full-time artist. And I was like, shut up. And even just like, ever since I've known him, he's had such a clear why statement about why he is an artist. And I have it written down because I didn't want to mess it up.
Yeah.
And it's, I make art to challenge perspectives and give hope to the marginalized and oppressed. Having now done a theology degree myself, I see the deep Hebrew scripture, Old Testament influence in that statement.
Yeah.
And I also think on a personal level, Trevor's a black man. He's from the South, and I am a white woman from the South. And this was my senior year of high school, was 2018. So like the 2016 Black Lives Matter movement had already happened.
Yeah.
And I was the most ignorant and unaware of it. And we had a lot of conversations about race, and that I was not ready to accept. I was not ready to admit that my experience is not everyone's my experience.
Yeah.
And then just in the years following, I've circled back and I've been like, man, Trevor tried so hard with me
To tell me. Yeah.
and
yeah.
I was so hard-headed. Especially like I remember when I was applying into colleges, I was like, just to be vulnerable, I've moved past this, please don't cancel me. But I was someone that like really did not understand like affirmative action. And I would say things like, oh, well, we have the same grades, but like she's black, so she's going to get in and I'm not, and that's not fair. And I thought that was just like okay to think and say. I didn't see any problem with that statement. Yeah. And that was one of like probably the more tense moments of our relationship, because I said that out loud to him, and he was like, no, hard no, and tried to explain just the hundreds of years of history in America of what has all led up to this moment. And I just like honestly like value him and his influence in my life more the further removed I am from him. Yeah. Because I realize I'm like almost having like memories I didn't know I had, where I'm like, oh, I get it now. And Trevor tried to tell me that when I was 18 and I wasn't going to take it. Yeah. But so I think to sum that all up, he was definitely the most inspiring boss I've ever had. One of the most talented people ever. He's doing video production, I think, in Washington, D.C. right now. But that he has deep inspiration and meaning behind everything that he does. He doesn't make art for art's sake. Right. And I'd always appreciated that about him. But so those two men, those two gentlemen, influenced me creatively a lot. Sorry.
Oh, no. You finish what you were going to say.
I was just going to say, and I think like I decided to become a Christian when I was 16, and there's just such a clear like chain of events between then and now. Like if I hadn't become a Christian, I wouldn't have moved to New York at all, because I moved here to work for a church. And then if I hadn't moved here for that job, I wouldn't have dated the boy I dated. And that breakup was why I came to the Hang, because I just like wanted a different group of people in my life that was separate from this other part that felt like it was falling apart. And then had I not found the Hang, I would not have started. I might not even be doing photo video at all. I might have just left it and let it be. Definitely wouldn't have done the Christmas production and would not be working in theater. Like even, I think of me at 16, if I had told myself, you're going to be a Christian, I would have been like, ew. But like that you're going to be a Christian that works in the theater industry in New York City, I'd be like, Literally every single piece of that sentence makes no sense individually. And then put them all together, it super doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, it's so cool.
I love your story so much. I was just going to say that I love like how different, like the different reasons that you mentioned both Josh and Trevor, but how also there's this like gravity under both of them that have so much meaning to the shaping of your like journey, you know? And I think there've been a few people that have mentioned people in their lives that they haven't talked to in a while. And I think it is so cool when somebody has made, especially in high school, when somebody's made that big of an impact in your life that, you know, 10, 20, 30 years down the line, you're still going to think back to the massive lessons that you learned because of this person or these people. Like I have a couple teachers that I think about from high school literally all the time. I'm like, I wouldn't be here because of this. And it's like a teacher that I haven't talked to in I don't know how many years.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I love that. And it's just cool to hear like, yeah, the transformation of just like all of the little nuggets that have led you to where you are today.
I even just remembered another little Trevor nugget that I wasn't ready to accept yet. He wrote me a card for my senior graduation, and I had like a going away party right before I moved to New York. And he signed it, "Create fervently, Trevor." And I had this like whole stack of graduation cards that when I was living at home with my parents during COVID, I just kind of was so bored that I started digging through the stuff in my room and I found that and I was like, and I brought it to New York with me. And I now have cut out that little part just where it was his signature. And it's pinned up in that same spot that other thing is, like right in front of my desk where I work. So every day as I sit there and I edit photos and I take meetings and whatever, it just says "Create fervently, Trevor Went." And he wrote that in 2018. And I didn't know I was an artist until 3 years after he wrote that. So like, yeah.
That's so
Grace,
cool.
you're like making me a little misty over here.
I know.
Gosh, that's cool.
It's cool that you pick both Trevor and Josh because now knowing you as an artist and as an incredible artist, I see from an outside perspective their influence on you and just how you create and how you move about this world. And that's why I love that we have this question, is because it allows me to see kind of a peek behind the curtain, so to speak, on people who are artists and why they create and what people influence them to be the artists that they are now. Because your love of movement and your love of doing the work, being inspired, that is totally Josh. But then your heart for people who are in need, your heart for creating meaning in your art and not just doing it for art's sake, like that is totally Trevor. So that's just cool to me. I wish I could go meet Trevor and be like, hey, shake his hand and be like, thanks for influencing my friend, because it's cool that throughout all of our lives, there are certain people who not only influence us in our day-to-day lives, but therefore influence us in the art that we make and why we do it. It's just really, really cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Okay, Grace. Last question is, what book, play, or film do you think every person should read or watch?
I have a dumb answer and then I have a real answer.
Love it.
My dumb answer, not because I think it's dumb, because I think it's great, but because other people are like, ugh, whatever. Everybody needs to watch The Greatest Showman. And every year, every year on March 26th, which is my birthday, I gather my pals and we watch The Greatest Showman.
Yes, we do.
And it's the best night of the year.
Yes, we do.
The Greatest Showman came out my senior year of high school. And me and my friend, we had like a half day. And we went, and this was a friend that like, I think she had seen, her parents had like a season pass to the touring house in our town. And they had taken me to see Waitress.
Yes.
And she was like, oh, if you like musical things, like we should go see this new movie. It says it's written by like the guys that wrote La La Land, because that had come out the year before.
Right.
And so we went and we saw it, and I remember us leaving the theater And we looked at each other and we were like, what have we just seen? Like, our world has been changed. Mine probably more than hers, but because I'm now 23 and still watch it every year on my birthday. But yeah, that's my dumb answer. My real answer in the theatrical space is a play called Cost of Living by Martina Mayock. It was on Broadway this past fall, and they got nominated for some things, which
yes, they did.
They very much... I would have rioted if it hadn't.
Riot.
But I saw that on Broadway, and I went home and immediately ordered the script on Amazon. It's in a collection from the Williamstown Theater Festival from like 7 plays that have all started there and have come down and made it to Broadway. And that is my favorite collection of plays ever. I think I lent it to our friend Luke Rowland, but when I get it back, I'm going to read it again because it is just like that collection of plays is wild.
Give Grace her plays back.
Yeah. But read them first.
Yes.
But I bought the script because I was like, I wonder what of what I saw was this production, and what is on the page.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And man, even that was just like crazy.
Yeah. What did you find out?
I'm not ready to articulate that at this exact moment.
It's
but
okay.
it just like, everyone read Cost of Living.
Okay.
They have to have it at the drama bookshop. I feel that they must.
Oh, yeah.
And then this is just like an annoying me answer, but I think everybody should read the Hebrew scriptures, aka the Old Testament.
Yes.
Obviously, if you're a Christian, you should read the whole thing. But like specifically, I think everybody should read the Old Testament because it influences so much of what we know the world to be. Even just like the 3 monotheistic religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, all like come from this one source. Right. You know what I mean? And Islam like splits off and they do their own thing. You know what I mean? But I just, even when I think in the arts world, how many things are like retellings of Bible stories or have biblical themes or I just think the world would be a better place if everybody read the Old Testament.
I agree.
That's
wholeheartedly
a great answer.
Yeah, that's a great answer.
I want to go read the Old Testament.
I know.
It's a short read. You could do it in one night.
It's a short read.
It's a short read.
A short, light beach read.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be a sight, wouldn't it?
Truly, truly, truly. Grace, thanks for who you are. We love you.
Okay.
You're a gift to the world.
Truly.
The drama.
The drama. The drama. But we love you as a friend. We love you as a creative partner. And I'm thankful. I'm thankful that you're here and you're an artist and you're making stuff because what you make is incredible.
Thanks. It really is. Grace, where can people find you on the socials or interwebs?
On Instagram, I am at gcope.nyc. And then my website is the same thing. It's www.gcope.nyc. And yeah. And
Branding.
that's on marketing.
I remember the day that you texted me, you were like, my website's going to be the same thing as my Instagram. We are, we're getting nice and
nice and what?
Just in sync. Oh
Can you
boy, that just didn't land like I thought it would.
Sound again?
I think maybe I'll stop.
I think you should maybe never do it again.
I think that's it for me.
You guys, thanks so much for listening, and we will see you very soon.
Thanks for listening to the For the Makers podcast. To find out more about Seated Productions, you can visit our website at www.seatedproductions.com and follow us on Instagram at seated.productions. And if you love what we do and want to support us, you can make a tax-deductible donation by visiting our website or by following the link in our podcast description. Until next time, listen well and tell stories.